what if, what if the reason you can't seem to kick your worst habit has absolutely nothing to do with a lack of willpower?
Right, like it's not just a character flaw.
Exactly. What if, instead, there is a literal glitch in your molecular space-time sequence? I mean, imagine for a second that the universe around you doesn't just operate on random chaos or, happy accidents.
Right.
Instead, every single thing you interact with, from a tiny ant crawling on the sidewalk to a massive multinational corporation, operates on this strict readable code.
Like an algorithm.
Yeah, an algorithm that dictates its behavior perfectly.
It's wild because it completely shifts the lens through which we view reality. You're no longer looking at this unpredictable, messy world, but rather a highly structured, synchronized program where nothing skips a step.
Welcome to another deep dive. Today, our mission is to explore a framework that claims to have cracked this exact code. It's known as quantum DNA, or in its original Spanish, ADN Quantico.
And there's a lot of material here.
There is. The foundation of this comes from over 35 years of independent research by a scientist named Juan Carlos Pérez Velázquez. We are pulling from a pretty fascinating stack of sources today.
Huge stack.
Yeah, we've got extensive video transcripts, detailed course syllabi for this unique certification program, and foundational literary works written by the researcher, including La Verdad del Futuro, which translates to The Truth of the Future, and the Enciclopedia del ADN Quantico.
And we should probably establish right up front for you, the listener, that we are venturing into territory that makes incredibly bold claims.
Oh, that's so.
I mean, claims about science, philosophy, the fundamental nature of reality itself. So we're just acting as your guides through this framework today.
Right. Our goal is impartially unpacking the internal logic and the arguments presented in these texts. We aren't here to endorse these viewpoints as absolute fact or, take a side.
Exactly. We just want to help you understand a totally unique and frankly mind-bending perspective on how the universe might actually operate.
So to even begin to grasp this quantum DNA framework, we have to look at the massive problem it claims to solve.
The big gap.
Right. The sources define this problem as this stark, irreconcilable contrast between the absolute precision of nature and, well, the utter chaos of human thought.
Yeah, and the text put a surprisingly specific metric on this, which I found fascinating. They argue that an astonishing 92% of human thought operates in conceptual chaos.
Okay, I have to pause there, because putting a precise number like 92% on something as abstract as human thought sounds kind of impossible.
It sounds totally arbitrary at first glance.
Right. How do they even derive a metric like that?
Well, it stems from analyzing the foundation of our societal structures. The framework argues that the vast majority of our ideas, our political systems, our philosophies, even our scientific models, they're all built on relative truths.
Meaning they change depending on who's looking at them.
Exactly. They are human constructs based heavily on trial and error, and they're deeply influenced by geography, culture, era. I mean, think about it. We create endless opposing political parties, thousands of different religions.
And conflicting scientific hypotheses.
Right, because we are essentially guessing. We don't actually know the foundational rules of the universe, so we're just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks.
And nature doesn't guess. The sources use this fantastic, really grounded analogy for this. They say if you plant an orange seed, you get an orange tree.
You don't get a pine tree.
Right, it's absolutely. Or look at the human heart. It has a very specific, absolute function to pump blood. It doesn't wake up one Tuesday and decide to filter toxins like a liver.
Because nature operates on absolute unchanging laws.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yet human thought is just swimming in all this relativity. But I'm struggling with a serious contradiction here.
Which is?
Well, if nature is flawless and absolute, and nature built the human brain, which is a biological miracle, just like the heart or the orange seed, how could a perfect system output a brain that churns out 92% chaos?
That paradox is exactly what triggered this entire 35-year investigation.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The researcher recognized that the biological hardware, the brain itself, is an absolute creation of nature. It's flawless in its design.
Okay.
It's the software, the social conditioning, the human perception that is generating all these relative truths. So to solve this, the researcher set out to find just one single, unchanging, absolute truth that the human mind has actually produced and maintained throughout all of recorded history.
Like searching for a needle in a haystack.
A needle that hasn't mutated over thousands of years. They were searching for a seed of truth.
And they found it in the binary system.
They did, zeros and ones.
Which is crazy because we think of that as so modern.
Right, but this goes far beyond modern computer code. The binary system is basically the most fundamental expression of reality. It's two opposing states.
Open or closed.
On or off, masculine or feminine. When you strip away all that cultural relativity we talked about, you find this binary concept anchoring ancient civilizations.
The text mentioned a few specific ones.
Yeah, we see it in the ancient Ife Empire in Nigeria. We see it in the hidden knowledge of ancient Egypt. And very clearly in the Qin dynasty with the I Ching, which uses continuous and broken lines to represent these opposing states.
So this binary seed is ancient, but it is also the literal foundation of our current digital era. Every piece of software, every app on your phone, it all ultimately boils down to those zeros and ones.
It's the universal language.
But if this binary code is the literal language of creation, why do we need a whole new framework? Doesn't traditional quantum physics already study the building blocks of the universe?
It does, and traditional quantum physics has made incredible strides, obviously. But the sources argue it has kind of hit a methodological wall.
How so?
Well, look at the tools traditional physics relies on to understand the universe.
Oh, right. We build these massive, multi-billion-dollar underground tunnels, like the Large Hadron Collider at CERN.
Exactly.
And we smash particles together at nearly the speed of light just to see what falls out. It's very aggressive.
It is. And through those high-speed collisions, traditional physics discovered that protons and neutrons aren't the smallest particles. They are made up of smaller parts, like quarks.
Oh, right.
Interestingly, though, traditional science essentially stops at the electron. It hasn't fully decoded the underlying structure beyond that point. Quantum DNA positions itself as the unknown face of quantum physics.
It goes deeper.
It goes deeper, and it doesn't rely on smashing things apart. It views all of creation as a perfectly synchronized program where every single element has a highly specific space-time sequence.
A sequence that can actually be read.
Exactly.
And the sources break this down into what they call the quantum creation design, or diseño de creación cuántica. They claim every single existence, whether it's biological, chemical, or social, has this exact design divided into three distinct parts.
It's the universe's ultimate blueprint.
So let's look at how this maps to an atom first, just to get our bearings, because the texts do a great job of explaining it that way.
Okay, so the first part of this quantum creation design is the pattern, or mold. In Spanish, el patrón.
The pattern, okay.
This represents the why of a creation. It is the core objective. In atomic terms, this correlates directly to the atomic nucleus, the protons and neutrons. The nucleus defines what an element fundamentally is.
Right, like carbon is carbon entirely because of its nucleus.
Exactly. The pattern is the core identity. The second part is coexistence, or convivencia.
Coexistence.
This is the social relationship or the environment the creation exists within. Who does it interact with? What is its immediate ecosystem?
So atomically, where does that fit?
That correlates to the inner electrons, the ones closest to the nucleus that basically mediate the immediate internal environment.
Which brings us to the third part, right? The final capacity, or capacidad final.
You got it. This is the ultimate goal, the absolute limit of what this creation can achieve and how it reacts to external stimuli.
And in an atom.
That correlates to the outermost valence electrons. Those are the electrons responsible for bonding with other atoms to create entirely new molecules. They define the ultimate interactive capacity of that element.
That's a great breakdown. But let's take this out of the chemistry lab, because the framework claims this applies to absolutely everything.
Right, from atoms to human behavior.
So if this works for an atom, how does it map to something like, say, a human business, like a startup company?
Yeah, that shows the true scale of the framework. If we apply the quantum creation design to a startup, the pattern, the nucleus, is the core mission of the founders. It's the reason the company was created, say, to disrupt the transportation industry.
Okay, makes sense. And the coexistence.
The coexistence, the inner electrons, would be the internal office culture, the immediate team, the HR policies, the daily operational environment.
Oh, I see. So the final capacity, those valence electrons on the outside, that would be the product launch, the ultimate market reach, and how the company interacts with competitors and consumers to actually generate capital.
Exactly. If you know the pattern, the coexistence, and the final capacity of a creation, you basically have the instruction manual for how its Lego pieces fit together.
You are mapping the exact synchronized binary algorithm of that specific existence.
Which is incredibly powerful.
And this leads to a claim in the material that I found completely staggering.
Yeah.
They talk about the death of the hypothesis.
Yes. This is a huge paradigm shift.
Because the scientific method, which relies entirely on hypotheses, is the bedrock of modern civilization. You observe something, you guess what's happening, and you test it. The sources are basically saying this framework just throws that all out.
They are.
How do you just bypass the scientific method?
Well, the texts argue that relying on hypotheses is essentially a slow, ignorant guessing game. You spend decades and millions of dollars testing a hypothesis only to find out you were totally wrong and you have to start all over again.
It's just endless trial and error.
Exactly. Quantum DNA claims to bypass this entirely through a tracking system called Matrix XL.
Okay, you say Matrix XL tracks the algorithm, but what does that actually look like? Are they doing, complex math on a giant whiteboard, or is it a software program?
It's described as a highly advanced conceptual mapping tool. Because everything operates on a strict space-time sequence, Matrix XL allows someone trained in this framework to theoretically track the exact point in the sequence where a specific creation or a specific problem originated.
Oh, wow.
So instead of poking around in the dark to figure out why a disease develops or why a structural material in a building fails, you just look up the source code.
You just read the blueprint.
Right. The claim is that what would normally take 20 years in traditional research can be condensed into just a couple of years simply because you are reading the direct structural blueprint of the problem.
But if this is the ultimate blueprint of reality, why is it only known through a weekend certification course? Why isn't this dominating the front page of every scientific journal in the world?
The sources address this directly. They emphasize the intense epistemological shift required to even comprehend this language.
It's not just learning a new skill.
No, it's unlearning. The 20.5-month certification program is designed for professionals, but it demands an unlearning of that 92% of conceptual chaos we talked about earlier.
Right, breaking down all those relative truths.
It requires tearing down preconceived notions of religion, metaphysics, traditional philosophy, just to reach a baseline absolute perspective.
And the people who graduate from this rigorous program are called analysts. My immediate concern when reading this, though, was the real-world application. I mean, does a certified analyst, after taking a course on weekends for less than 2 years, suddenly walk into a hospital and replace a specialized oncologist?
No, not at all. And the sources explicitly clarify that this is not the case. The analyst does not compete with or replace specialists.
Oh, okay. That makes much more sense.
Yeah, an analyst trained in universal knowledge knows the space-time laws, but they don't have the technical granular expertise to, perform surgery or build a suspension bridge. Instead, the analyst acts as a bridge of scientific structure.
They provide the architecture.
Exactly. Using Matrix XL, the analyst extracts the underlying quantum accretion design of the specific problem, say a complex medical condition. They map the pattern, the coexistence, the final capacity.
And then they hand it off.
Right. They hand the structural blueprint over to the specialist. Armed with the exact map of the problem, the specialist can then use their deep technical expertise to reach depths of research and application that were previously completely impossible.
Because they aren't hindered by the slow process of trial and error hypotheses anymore.
They know exactly where to look.
I noticed the syllabus notes that the final software and the operational algorithms are delivered confidentially and in person to the students at the end of the course.
Yes, it's highly secured.
There is an intense focus on not letting this technology fall into inexperienced hands, which implies a tremendous amount of power, and therefore responsibility is given to these analysts.
Well, think about it. They are navigating the very code of reality. You wouldn't want someone randomly tweaking the core files of your computer's operating system if they didn't know what they were doing.
Fair point. Which actually brings me to the most confronting part of the entire deep dive today.
The self-sabotage aspect.
Yes. If the universe's algorithm is so flawlessly perfect, and we have this exact blueprint for everything, why are humans such a mess?
It's the ultimate question.
I mean, why do we suffer from addictions, self-sabotage our own relationships, or destroy our environment? If the code is perfect, why is the output so deeply flawed?
The framework introduces a structural explanation for human suffering, and they call it the quantum opposite, or opuesto cuántico.
The sources describe this as an internal prosecutor or an internal fiscal.
Yeah.
It's like this presence inside our own minds that is actively working against our original creation essence.
To understand why this internal saboteur even exists, we have to look at a universal law stated in the sources, which is creation does not deny itself.
Okay, what does that look like in practice?
Take human reproduction. Biologically, at the molecular DNA level, a human male and a human female can fuse and create a child. Because they are the same biological species, the biology works seamlessly.
The biological creation does not deny itself.
Right. However, at the quantum level, things are vastly different. While those two parents share molecular DNA, they have completely different space-time sequences. They have entirely different quantum creation designs.
Oh, I see.
So when they fuse to create a child, those quantum sequences clash.
I was trying to visualize this while reading, and it feels like taking the source code of an Apple operating system and the source code of a Windows operating system and just forcefully mashing them together onto one single hard drive.
That's a perfect analogy. The computer might boot up, right? It might even run basic functions.
No, you can probably open a calculator.
But it is going to generate massive glitches, internal conflicts, and fatal errors because the underlying codes are fundamentally incompatible in certain areas.
And the sources refer to this glitch as a quantum mutation. Because humanity has been multiplying for millennia, constantly fusing these incompatible quantum sequences generation after generation, we are currently living in a state of what the texts call a quantum pandemic.
And this quantum mutation is the literal root cause of the quantum opposite. It generates the internal static. It explains why, a brilliant, specialized doctor might chain smoke cigarettes, even though they have deep technical knowledge that it causes cancer.
Right.
The quantum opposite forces us to act completely counter to our own best interests and our original pattern of creation.
It's a literal tug of war happening inside our code. And depending on the ratio, a person's life can look very different.
Oh, completely.
If your creation essence is dominant at, say, 90%, and your quantum opposite is only 10%, you might be a visionary leader but struggle with something minor, like chronic insomnia.
But if the ratio is flipped...
Right, if your quantum opposite is running the show at 90%, you might exhibit highly destructive behaviors, severe addictions, or totally self-sabotage your career.
It provides a purely structural, algorithmic explanation for the vast diversity of human suffering and achievement. And what's interesting is it removes the moral judgment often associated with human failing. It's not a lack of willpower, it's a conflict in the code.
Wow. We have covered an immense amount of ground today. We've explored a massive paradigm shift that reframes reality not as a chaotic guessing game, but as a highly structured binary-based algorithm.
A literal program.
Yeah. We looked at how trained analysts aim to use the Matrix Excel tracking system to bypass the slow process of traditional hypotheses, empowering specialists with exact structural blueprints.
We also broke down the three-part quantum design, the pattern, coexistence, and final capacity, and saw how it maps to everything from atomic structure to a corporate business.
And finally, we explored the concept of quantum mutations and how the clash of space-time sequences creates our internal saboteur, the quantum opposite.
Ultimately, the sources position this quantum DNA certification as the dawn of a new scientific era, a way for humanity to literally read the language of creation and solve real-world problems in business, medicine, and beyond by moving from relativity to absolute structure.
It demands a complete reevaluation of how we seek knowledge, which, leaves us with a rather profound philosophical question to consider.
It definitely does. If your greatest strengths, your ultimate purpose, and even your most deeply ingrained self-destructive habits are all pre-written in a quantum space-time sequence, to what extent is your sense of free will just an illusion?
That's heavy.
Are the daily choices you make truly your own, or are you just experiencing a quiet, predetermined tug of war between your creation essence and your quantum opposite?
That reframes every decision you've ever made. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Next time you look around at the chaotic world, ask yourself, are you just seeing the surface, or are you starting to see the strict readable code running beneath it all? Keep questioning the reality around you. Catch you next time.